Hi, Shameless Squad. So I decided to title this video, Don't Be a Parent if you're not going to give this to your children, your child, whatever. I have said this on my channel for a long time now, that a lot of times parents have been like, well, how do you give your child everything that you never had and make sure that you're still a good parent and that you have boundaries and that you still are able to give them structure and provide them with rules, life, emotional regulation, just all these things. And I said to so many people over the years, if you cannot give your child emotional intimacy, meaning teaching them about how to cope with things, have all these hard life lesson conversations, things of that sort. If you can't give them being able to talk about sex, talk about love, talk about money, talk about relationships, talk about spirituality, talk about careers, supporting them through these different life lessons here, then don't be a parent. And I know some of y'all might be like, what the heck do you know? Well, I'm a certified sex therapist, so y'all, relationships and love and sex and sexuality are my bread and butter with psychology, babe. So I have been studying this for years of my life. Am I practicing anymore? Right now, no, I am not. And I have 4 years of my life. So let's talk about this, not for 4 years, but 4 years of my life, okay? But I want to share this with you because I think it's really important here overall, specifically, okay? So I'm going to go through the Psychic Channel download message I got, and then we're going to talk about it. If you want to see the full Psychic Channeled message that it came through of stop seeking love in all the wrong places, when it talks about parents, it talks about friends, it talks about singles, it talks about relationships overall, then go back and watch that video. I will put it in the comments below here overall, but this is just one that I really want to break up because, the spirituality psychic side of me is share this channel download message and break it up a little bit, and the psychology part of me is share your wisdom, your knowledge, your tools, your education, your lived, your learned, your heard experience. Your lived experience is my own personal life experience in the game, right? My learned experience is my education and everything that I have had to apply with clients in regards to therapy sessions, whatever in the past. And my heard experiences is doing the damn thing by practicing therapy previously. So I have the trifecta here, just like many of you do in your careers, in your life, in your different spaces and places that right? If you're a mechanic, I'm not going to tell you how to do your job here, right? I don't know jack shit when it comes to that, right? So this is something where you have lived, you have learned, you have heard experience with anything here. So I definitely just encourage you to share your gifts, your talents with people out there as well. That came up in Venus retrograde video earlier this week when I recorded very heavily for the collective to share your stories here and share the things that you just know, your wisdom, okay? So we are done with that TED Talk. So we seek love in all the wrong places. Parents, singles, family members, and friends, nobody is excluded from this list. We're going to talk about parents in this video. Parents seek love from a child because they did not get love during childhood here. Parents seek it in their children to be their best friends, cause an enmeshed, unhealthy relationship, want their child to have the same interests, even if their child does not enjoy them and traditions, and when their children do not want to take them on or even like them. Parents project onto their kids their values, their beliefs, their thoughts, and opinions, expecting a child to adopt that same mindset without even a discussion. Parents giving a child everything, aka the money, aka the monetary value, rather than love itself. All of these narratives are unhealthy. These are examples of fake love we've been conditioned into, which is unhealthy, toxic, and abuse. So here's what real love from a parent looks like. Loving a child unconditionally, no matter what age, race, ethnicity, religion, career choice, gender, sexuality, size, ability, whatever. And not projecting your family generational trauma, curses, abuse, wounds, unhealthy history, or patterns onto them. Loving a child, knowing that the pressure of them being your best friend is not expected. The pressure of them taking on traditions is not there, and there's no pressure to have the same interests. Loving a child means accepting that they are different from you and being okay with that to a point of affirming them, their ideas, thoughts, beliefs, identity, and not arguing with them or projecting your fears onto them. Loving a child means giving them the gift of emotional intimacy, care, empathy, compassion, boundaries, structure, routine, and responsibility, rather than spoiling them rotten because of how your child played out or how your childhood played out with not receiving things, which is what you thought love was. But you now realize you are sorely mistaken. If you're going to be a parent, you need to give your children the gift of emotional intimacy. Talk about isms, sexism, genderism, racism, ageism, ableism, parentism, etc. All of them. You need need to set your children up for success in life. And talk about everything: love, unhealthy and healthy relationships, money, life skills, chores, work, responsibility, self-care, emotional regulation, coping skills, sex, health, holistic wellness, self-esteem, boundaries, religion, spirituality, the choice to be a parent, the choice to have a house, the choice to have a pet, the choice to have a baby, and everything in between is important with topics. You need to give your child love by saying, I love you, hugging them, tell them how proud of them you are, and accepting them for who they are and how they change in the future. If you can't do these things, don't be a parent. Don't use the excuse of our generation was different. That doesn't mean it was right, and that doesn't mean it can't be better. Because it can. This is an excuse. There are so many resources to learn, listen, share, and apply this knowledge that would help parents and others out there. Use it or potentially lose your kids. We think kids are done growing at 18 when they're an adult, and then again when they're 25, when their brain is fully developed. That's simply not true. When you sign up to be a parent, you sign up to be a lifelong learner. Do not forget that. So Shameless Squad, I want to talk to you a little bit about my lived, my learned, my heard experience here overall when it comes to being a therapist. Psychically, this was the channeled message download that I got specifically. And I think one of the biggest things is a lot of times when parents look to their child to be their best friend, there is some sort of unhealthy boundary relationship enmeshment there, is what they call it in psychology. Meaning you put so much pressure on the child to like have them love you, meaning because like your parents maybe didn't love you, or you didn't get that love in a certain way here. And then a lot of times this is when parents tend to put their problems on their children when they need to be putting their problems on their therapist. That's when you need to be seeking therapy and counseling, because this is healthy here, okay? And a lot of times there can be, when you do have good relationships and healthy relationships with your children, it's okay for your child to set boundaries with you, and it's okay for you to also set boundaries with your child here and have these conversations where you can really connect and kind of figure out what it is that your child needs for support and what it is that your child doesn't need for support. You are the parent in the situation, so it's important for you to be initiating these conversations as well and asking your child, and really thinking about what role am I playing in my child's life? Am I a child to my child? So flipping the parenting role back on them. Or am I the parent to my child here? You know what I mean? And yes, kids can be there for their parents, abso-freaking-lutely. When it's to the point of where you're putting everything on your child to listen to your problems or, do everything for you, that is not a healthy relationship dynamic here. And especially even when it comes to different types of family traditions, if a child doesn't like it, they don't have to do it. And it's okay for them to be their own person. It's okay for them to say, no, that's not for me. No, I don't like this. No, I want to try my own things and my own traditions here. And when your children have partner or partners, if they have multiple partners and they're in poly relationships dynamics where they're not monogamous here, more than likely they probably don't want to take on your traditions anyway. And maybe that's a good question for you to ponder. Think about, ask yourself why, introspect and reflect on it too, and also ask them why here specifically as well. And this is something where those relationships, if they are in a poly relationship or they're in a monogamous relationship, if they're married, they're not married, they're with a partner, whatever it looks like, those people are probably going to want to start their own types of traditions here. And sometimes we use traditions in family relationships, especially parents and everything like that, in order to culturally shame people, put the guilt trip on them that it has to be one type of way here, my way or the highway. And when children are like, I'm not playing that game, I don't do cult mentality here, I don't do my way or the highway, or all for one, one for all, or this is it kind of energy, you're going to push people, aka your children, away, or maybe even their partners, spouse, whomever, even potentially friends if they are bringing them around you, okay? So it's something to be able to let go a little bit, let go of control, and let your kids also have a say in what it is that they want to do or what they don't want to do when it comes to family traditions. And their values and beliefs and opinions might be different than yours. Yes, absolutely. Does it mean that it's right for you? No, absolutely not. And does it mean your values or opinions are right for them? No, absolutely not. And you can't force your child to believe something that you believe here. And your child can't force you to believe something that they believe. But there just needs to be an open discussion about these topics. And if there are certain topics where you feel like this is really hard, I really can't talk to my child about this here, then it's better to have certain things left unsaid and figure out whom in your life you can discuss certain topics with. And same for children. There are certain topics that, you're going to say, my parents are never going to get it. They're just not. They're not going to get this part of me. And you need to find that community of people and the buckets of people whom you can connect with, right? And when it comes to parents specifically, one of the biggest things that they teach us in psychology is, what are the things your parents did that you hated, and how are you maybe reprogramming your child to maybe do those things? Or are those certain generational patterns, curses, traumas that are being passed down here? And one of the biggest things that people don't realize, and this is what Staying Shameless is all about, we can literally psychologically and emotionally abuse somebody. Shame, because shame is abuse. It's psychological, it's emotional, it's creative, it's intellectual. It's the type that you don't always necessarily recognize. That's why it's hard to detect sometimes. We can do that with our words and what we speak here. And then sometimes we wonder why we're having struggles in relationships. If you're shaming a person, then yeah, like that person probably doesn't want to be around you. And even if your parents are shaming you about how you're parenting, right, that's going to really create an unhealthy relationship dynamic of how you actually want to raise your children and what it is that you want to do and how it is that you want things to be different here. So it's important to have these dialects. It's important to have these shameless conversations with shameless healthy communication skills. If you want, go to stayshameless.com, sign up for my newsletter. You get a free gift from me that's pages on how to learn to communicate shamelessly, not shamefully. And I give you so many different examples, words, things that you can use. It's a really good resource, y'all. I'm surprised I'm actually not selling it and giving it away for free, because it is a good one to have in your back pocket. And so again, just as, we think your children grow up, they learn all these things, whatever, and then they're out in the world. You might see that child of still needing to learn life lessons, but parents also learn life lessons through their children. And so that can also come through communication here, which can be important. One of the biggest things that I have just seen throughout my life and my lived and my learned and my heard experience is when parents just spoil their kids rotten, I've noticed a heightened sense of entitlement attitude and a heightened sense of depression and mood state changes impacting that child and affecting them, because they don't have to work for anything. Their motivation is lacking then. They don't feel that spark and that spice for life again. And so when people say, there was an episode on Love is Blind a couple seasons ago, I don't remember who, they were or maybe it was Selling Sunset or Selling the OC. I mean, I love all the reality TV shows, y'all. But this guy talked about, I want to give my children everything because my parents didn't give me everything. I didn't have a life. I didn't have all these things that I want. So I want to spend, money on my kids, give them gifts, give them these items, do all these things. Your children don't want that. Your children want you. Yes, can you spend a little bit on them on all these different items? Absolutely. But when it's to the point of spoiling them rotten, do not be surprised if that was a way that you potentially could have enabled that behavior of entitlement specifically, which could have led to mental health struggles issues. I've seen people lack the motivation to finish, getting their college degree, lack the motivation to getting their high school degree, lack the motivation of anything in life. The things that they used to love doing, like art, music, sports, theater, dance, people lose the motivation to do these things when you give them everything, because then they feel like they don't have to work for those things that are important for them in life. And children could also do that when spoiling parents, because sometimes there is this dynamic of the parent thinks, I gave you life and I can take it away from you. Shame, right? And the parent might put some sort of pressure on the child to perform, to make money, to then be able to feel like, well, now you owe me. Now you got to give that money back to me. That is psychological and financial abuse here. It's an abuse tactic here. And so that's something where a lot of people don't realize that it's hard to see what is going on underneath the surface and in between the lines of certain things. And that's where psychic Jackie comes in, because she just gets these messages and channels them and writes them, and they come through so beautifully. And psychology Jackie's like, this is unhealthy with these dynamics. And so when it comes to loving a child unconditionally, that's just all those different areas. And even in the state of Minnesota, one of the biggest things, as a sex therapist that has came out in the past couple years or so, if you have a child who is on the gender expansive continuum, everything like that community, that is something where if you do not use their proper pronouns and the name that they want to be called or whatever, if they are going through, gender, adventure, everything like that, and you don't use the pronouns that they want to be called by as a parent, that is a mandated report. And a lot of people don't know that, because that is considered emotional neglect and abuse of the child. And so this is something where if you're going to have kids and you're not going to raise them knowing about how sex and gender are different and how gender can influence sexuality, or that they might be queer, because the Trevor Project did this amazing study years ago, and I don't remember if it was 2020, 2021, but it was 1 in 4 kids nowadays are a part of the LGBTQ plus community. That's 25%. And I will not be surprised if that number goes up higher and higher and higher. And so parents, you have to talk to your children about this. And you also need to affirm them in their gender journey adventure, whatever they call it, whatever you call it here. And that's one of the things where, why did you have a child? It's like the quote, don't be a parent if you're not going to welcome a queer child into this world, or a child that, is different from the gender that you thought they were, whatever, right? And that's why gender reveal parties are so stupid, because it's genital reveal parties. And when I was getting my sex therapy certificate coursework done years ago, we talked about, isn't that kind of creepy when you really think about it? So even we have gender and sex mixed up when it comes to these things here overall. And so this is something where it's also important to really keep learning as a parent. You are a forever learner. Your children and your child will put things in front of your face that are going to trigger you, that are going to challenge you, and it's still up to you to be the parent in those situations. Regulate your emotions, and use coping skills and strategies to really use for the future and apply here, okay? And one of the biggest things is with loving a child, it's giving them these gifts. It's modeling these things to them. It's showing them how you have boundaries and you set and hold different rules. It's showing them how you can cry as a parent in front of them. It's showing them you can talk about your emotions and feelings on really hard days in front of them. Model that to them, because when we don't and we think, we have to suck up those tears, or we say, I'm sorry for crying, that is literally shaming ourselves for having emotions when you are a human. You are a person here. You are having an experience here, okay? And that is absolutely normal. And it's so healthy to cry. There's literally studies and research that shows it releases, happy chemicals after in the brain, and this surge of just okay, I'm relieved. I feel good now, right? And there is this balance also of so many people, and parents specifically, think that the cry it out method has worked. And there's been research to prove that it does not. It actually screws with your child's attachment, and babies cannot self-soothe. I've been in so many networking groups where they're like, oh yeah, I have a 1-year-old baby, blah, 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 and they cry a lot, and they're turning down my heat because she's getting hot and spicy up in here, y'all. But they're like, oh yeah, my baby's crying and it's very colicky, and one of the persons or people in there, they're like, oh yeah, you gotta let them cry it out. They gotta learn how to self-soothe. It's parents, people, adults don't even know how to freaking self-soothe sometimes. Why would you expect a baby to know how to self-soothe? Are you kidding me? It's not a thing. So if you're interested in any of that work, look up John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth. They actually showed that when you do the cry it out method, rather than having a strong, secure, responsible leadership, healthy emotional child where they feel like they can regulate their emotions and they can cry and they don't feel shame in this, that attachment goes from secure to avoidant. Like, I'm going to be so damn independent, I'm not going to ask you for help here. I'm going to do things on my own. Like, you can't do these things for me. I'm going to escape here overall. They're going to be so anxious that they're not going to know how to regulate, and they're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And then they flee situations, like flight, fight, freeze, spawn here. They flee situations. They run away. They don't soothe their anxiety. And then you have a disorganized attachment here where excuse me, where it oscillates specifically in between where it oscillates specifically between, can I trust this person? Can I not trust this person? Whatever. That's anxious ambivalent, but disorganized is like, oh, I'm going to laugh, like the Joker is the best way I can describe it. Batman, the Joker, right? Like killing people and thinking it's funny. It's when the emotion doesn't match the situation here overall. And so then it's kind of, you have to learn what healthy emotions are specifically to situations in life. And so if you haven't actually taught your child emotional regulation skills, self-soothing skills, coping strategies and skills, then that's something where it's going to be so important for you to learn as a parent and really help them through these things in life here. And Mel Robbins, she came out with the let them theory. And in her book, I haven't finished it. I don't think I will finish it. That's going to be a whole nother tangent video for y'all later. But Mel Robbins really talked about how, and she's in therapy. So she's not a therapist. She's a lawyer who turned into a motivational speaker, who turned into a coach, who really likes to study psychology and relationships and whatever. And she's in the personal growth and helping industry, okay? The let them theory, though, in that book says, well, I feel bad because, I didn't know how to self-soothe and emotionally regulate, and I became this anxious person here, and then I didn't teach my children that. And she used the excuse and the rationale, defense mechanism, because we all do this, of, well, my parents never taught me that. So it's like they did the best they could. And I'm like, yes, and there's always personal growth and room to do better for ourselves and for our children and for ourselves as parents out there, whomever. And so, Shameless Squad, this is something where, loving a child is also to love yourself so damn much that you're also personally growing as a parent. I've asked people when they were ready to have babies and children and stuff like that, I've like, are you ready for that? And then they're like, I guess I have to be. And I'm like, am I like living in the twilight zone here? Like, why are you all not discussing this? And how come when it comes to this, a lot of parents nowadays want to blame their children for cutting them off because of unhealthy abuse cycles, dynamics, family generational trauma, shame, wounding patterns? A lot of parents are blaming, is it trending that all these millennials and people are just cutting off their parents? It's not a trend. It maybe is something to say, hey, if you're seeing all of this happening, what is it that you didn't do to be that really healthy parent here, right? What is it that you did to show up for your child maybe in a shameful way here, right? And again, yes, parents are doing the best they can with the best they got, and parents, you are going to be forever lifelong learners. And this is why it is such a big choice and decision to have children here, because they are going to go to you for almost everything in life. And that is also your job, for them to be able to come to you for everything in life. And me personally, no, I don't have kids. Okay. And I know a lot. I've been a mother. I've helped raise people in my family here, okay? And the way that I've seen it when I've been a therapist, my clients, I've treated them like they are my children, like my babies. And a lot of times, clients legit come to me because of the relationships that they have had with their parents. It's on a continuum, y'all. So I don't work just with one kind of age group, whatever. I do 18 plus specifically. I used to work with teens and children and whatever. Not anymore, right? But I have clients from all different ages across the continuum specifically. And this is something where a lot of times, because you see parents and family systems not being worked on, it impacts the child so much. And it's so important for the parent to be able to foster new hope in the family and children and reparent themselves from the parents that maybe they didn't have, but also not look to the child to have to be their parent in that situation. And that's where I come in, Shameless Squad, because I've been the person to listen to tons of people, tons of stories, tons of just lovely people in this world here, be it from books, be it from whatever, live, learn, heard, and experience, right? And this is something where you sometimes have to make the hard decision to cut off a parent, or even vice versa, cut off a child if there is something there with the relationship that is just not healthy, it's not good, it's toxic, and like maybe you've tried to, as a parent, really raise your child to be this really great person out there, and maybe this is something that, on a soul spiritual level, you're just not aligned with them. You're not connected with them in that kind of way. And it can be really frustrating then, because then sometimes maybe even parents think, oh my gosh, am I a bad parent if I have to cut off this child here? No, don't shame yourself. Because again, yes, you did the best you could in everything. And this is something where even if you're questioning yourself about that, you're probably a pretty damn good parent. It's the ones that don't question themselves that are the scariest out there, who think they know it all, learned it all, lived it all, everything. And this is something to pay attention to if you are a parent here and you feel like you and a parenting partner or a spouse or a partner are not on the same page with things. I highly encourage you that you do get on the same page with things, because again, this is one of those things, if you chose this is something for you to really prioritize. And I think a lot of times too, when grandparents are the ones that are trying to tell parents how to raise their children, there are so many other helpful tools and ways. Do not give feedback or advice when it is not asked for. That is shame. That is psychologically abusing someone, saying you know how to do it better than them. And then the ego comes in. And then before you know it, you may be like, why don't I get to see my grandkids as much? Right? And vice versa. Like, kids can also do that with parents as well here, and like say, hey, like, well, you should be doing this, blah, 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 blah. And then it doesn't come up with healthy dynamics here. And so that's why, from a holistic, systemic, stance when it comes to families and relationships, it's important to really operate from that shameless communication rather than that shameful communication. And one other thing, for parents that are ever like, well, I've seen so many people like dating, and like, how soon should I introduce somebody to my child here, right? Like if I'm like a single person, divorced or whatever, or widowed. Really, the research, the relationship attachment model says 1 year, because kids get attached. Their attachment style is going to be affected. They're going to want to cling. They're going to want to connect. And to have somebody come in and out and in and out and in and out of that child's life is going to play out in their future, is going to skew what they think a healthy and unhealthy relationship is like. And healthy relationships, a lot of times we think, well, this is how I grew up, that's normal. And I'm like, normal for you? Yes. Normal for others? No. Healthy? No. Let's talk about this. And so it's important to learn about relationship red flags and green flags and unhealthy and healthy relationships. So the Attachment Project, I don't remember if it's .com or .org, is a really great resource to kind of look into attachment. The book Attached is also a really great one too. I will link it down below in the comments. But these are some things where I see it so much. And I also say this with a grain of salt here. When you see certain parents comment about certain things in regards of how to help your child do this, how to help your child do that, how to help your child whatever, or introduce them in, this says, within 6 months or whatever to introduce your kid to a child. No. They have not done their research. And when people say like, oh my gosh, sleep training works. No, they have not done their research. It is not proven that sleep training works specifically. It is placebo. But one of the things is, that's where the spiritual side of me comes in. If you believe it, it's going to work. But psychology is really saying babies are all so different. And sleep training is going to be something where you're not going to have the perfect formula for your child, because your child is different than other children. And that's the same thing. If you have multiple children, you probably know as a parent, you're going to have to treat each one as an individual. Otherwise, it's going to be really freaking hard to do your job as a parent if you compare your children, if you treat one the same as the other, if you raise one as you raise the other. Like, this is just not going to work, right? And so, Shameless Squad, just be mindful, because there's a lot of people out there, especially people who are in the public eye, like Mel Robbins, who just has and speaks on lived experience alone. She quotes her therapist, everything like that, her psychologist, everything like that. She is not degreed in counseling, psychology, therapy, or any related field here, okay? Pay attention to, if you ever seek help from a parenting coach, make sure that they have a degree in counseling, therapy, psychology. And why? Is because they have had to research so much. And you are going to get the best care with that parenting coach out there specifically because they've had to research. Therapists and psychologists go to schools for as much or even longer, depending on the timeline, as doctors and as lawyers. So that's the thing where if you are being mindful of if you are investing, be it therapy or coaching or a parenting consultant in the future, I highly recommend you go with someone who specifically has that trained clinical experience, because anybody can call themselves a coach nowadays. Kids can call themselves a coach nowadays, right? And you can be a coach like within a weekend, according to Jay Shetty, right? And I would not recommend going through anybody who's done that specific particular program, because that is bypassing any mental health work potentially that coach is doing or has done. Okay. So Shameless Squad, this is my tangent for you. Just know that I want to share this, not to shame, to share and to reflect and to help and to put these messages out there for you specifically of blending the spiritual side of Jackie and the psychological side of Jackie here, because she's done the damn work. So why not share, right? Why not give these things to all of you to just put it out there? So I hope you like this video. Stay shameless, yo. If you do, definitely drop me a heart in the comments below. This was a hard one for me to record here. And something I've been wanting to do for a long time. Definitely smash subscribe if you love it and you are here for it. And if you found value in it, please, like, this takes me 30 minutes recording. The back end, it takes hours to upload. Sometimes it can take hours to edit, like the back end stuff. So please help this channel grow, even if that is smashing the like button. It is completely free to you. Share this with your friends too, boo. I'm going to do videos about how singles seek love in the wrong places, how families seek love in the wrong places, and how people seek friendships in the wrong places. So I really was called to talk about relationships. So I'm going to break up some other ones here, but I hope you like this video. I hope you found value in it. Just know I'm sending you all lots of love and a big hug. And as always, smash subscribe. I love you. Stay shameless, boo.